The scene opens to a breathtaking view of nature, with majestic mountains in the background and the sun rising on the horizon. In the foreground, lush trees frame the picturesque landscape. The scene shifts to a group of half-naked men, clad in military-style camouflaged pants and wearing dog tags, engaged in a vigorous run. In the background, two men can be seen overseeing the group. The camera shifts its focus to two men, one being the blonde-haired lieutenant and the other a man with black hair. The black-haired man inquires of the lieutenant whether today marks the beginning of Ijin's school journey. The lieutenant acknowledges this and expresses his concern, despite having educated Ijin for half a year. The black-haired man reflects that Ijin has spent the last 10 years living in an environment like that since he was just 9 years old. He expresses hope that Ijin can successfully adapt to his new surroundings. The lieutenant appears confident and asserts that Ijin will undoubtedly be fine because he personally undertook the task of educating him. We return to the previous scene, with the bully sprawled on the ground, his eyes rolled back and his nose bleeding. Ijin is taken aback by this and wonders if the guy genuinely passed out from just that one punch. Ijin glances to his side and spots the other two bullies who were part of the group. Out of nowhere, the former mercenary sprints forward and launches an attack on the other bully. The second guy is sent flying over the railing and collapses to the ground immediately. The last bully is taken aback by Ijin's intense gaze, and their eyes lock in a tense moment. Ijin regards the bully with a predator's determination, akin to how a predator eyes its prey. The standoff is abruptly interrupted by Ijin's little sister, who has removed the jacket and appears surprised. She questions Ijin about what occurred, mentioning that she was only covered up for a brief moment. As Dayun looks around, she notices the two bullies lying unconscious on the floor. Ijin approaches his sister and apologizes to her, inquiring if she was startled. Awkwardly, he then asks her if she'd like something to eat and if he should buy her a meal. She appears surprised and replies that it's fine, she doesn't need anything. Dayun returns Ijin's jacket, and the two of them continue walking home. While they walk, the third bully looks at Ijin and Dayun with apprehension and wonders if Ijin is the same person she encountered a moment ago. Once they are alone again, Dayun inquires if Ijin was the one who attacked the two bullies. Ijin meets her gaze and confirms that he was the one who confronted them. Dayun is taken aback by this response, as she didn't expect her brother to be someone who would engage in such actions. The camera provides a view from behind the two siblings, and Dayun informs Ijin that in this country, it could be considered impolite to give people such intense stares. Ijin goes on to explain that even in the place where he used to live, people needed to be cautious about making eye contact because it could be potentially risky or dangerous. Dayun appears surprised and questions why he did it then. Ijin responds confidently that it seemed like those bullies were causing trouble. The scene transitions to a building at night. Inside the building, we see Dayun and her grandfather. Her grandfather suggests to Ijin that he should take a seat and enjoy some fruits. Ijin, already donning an apron, insists that it's fine, and he'll take care of the dishes so his grandfather can have a seat. The grandfather looks down with a hint of embarrassment and hopes that the food met Ijin's taste because he did his best to prepare it. The young man responds to his grandfather's query with a heartfelt reply, stating that he always enjoys his cooking, and it's always delicious. The grandfather tries to play it cool, claiming he's relieved, but deep down, he's genuinely elated. He had even enrolled in cooking classes after learning that Ijin was coming back, all to make sure he could prepare delicious meals for his grandson. The sibling's grandfather then turns to Dayun and inquires if she also enjoyed the meal. Dayun smiles and responds that she thought it was really delicious. While Ijin holds a plate in one hand and a sponge in the other, his grandfather inquires how his first day of school went. Ijin begins to speak but notices Dayun's anxious expression. He turns to her and assures her that there were no issues on his first day. His grandfather expresses happiness and states that he's relieved to hear that. As the scene shifts to the outside of the building, we hear Ijin bidding goodnight to his grandfather. As Ijin lies in bed, he reflects on the time he saw his grandfather again after a decade of separation. We see his grandfather, tears in his eyes, embracing Ijin tightly. He expresses his overwhelming joy that Ijin was able to come back, and how glad he is. On their way home, his grandfather asks him if he doesn't have any memories from when he was younger. However, he quickly follows up by saying that it's okay, and the most important thing is that Ijin is alive and back with them. The next memory Ijin recalls is his grandfather offering him food, and in front of him, there's a table laden with an assortment of dishes. His grandfather mentions that he wasn't certain about Ijin's preferences, so he prepared a variety of dishes, hoping that at least some of them would suit his taste. We see Ijin drifting off to sleep, his last thoughts consisting of just 2 words, a family. Next, we find ourselves in an airplane. The plane is experiencing turbulence, and panic begins to spread among the passengers. The oxygen masks deploy, and passengers in the plane scramble to secure one for themselves. We see a young Ijin and an adult, likely his father, assisting Ijin in putting the oxygen mask on his face. The 2 adults sitting on either side of Ijin begin to hold him, likely trying to comfort and reassure him during the turbulent flight. The scene shifts to an exterior view of the airplane. Its engines have exploded, and the plane is descending rapidly. Ijin wakes up from his nightmare, sitting up abruptly as if he's about to vomit. He clutches his face with both hands, gasping for air as he tries to calm himself. He reassures himself that it was just a dream. Our protagonist hears a sound coming from outside his room. As he exits his room, he is greeted by the sight of his little sister wearing an apron. She smiles at him and mentions that she was just about to wake him up. Ijin inquires about the whereabouts of their grandfather. Dayun informs Ijin that their grandfather left for work at dawn, leaving Ijin surprised by the early start. His little sister explains that their grandfather only took a few days off after Ijin's return, but now he needs to resume work. She also mentions that she has to leave early today, so she will head out ahead of him. Standing at the entrance, she informs her brother that she left the leftovers from last night on the table, so he can have that for breakfast. After Dayun leaves, Ijin finds himself alone in the room. The scene transitions back to Ijin's and Dayun's school. The blonde-haired girl asks her friend if she's sure that the new transfer student is really Dayun's brother. We return to the aftermath of the previous day when Ijin and Dayun left the scene. The group of bullies is still recovering from the impact of Ijin's punches. The girl is on her knees next to one of the bullies, who is still unconscious. She's scared and worried that such a powerful reaction from just one hit is possible. The blonde-haired girl arrives and asks her friend what happened to the 2 guys who were beaten up. She's curious and concerned about their condition. The other girl remains silent, lost in her thoughts, worrying about the consequences of targeting Dayun. The girl recalls the intense and intimidating look in Ijin's eyes, which had left her feeling frightened. The girl tries to reassure herself by thinking that everything will be fine because Ijin is part of the alpha group among the third-year students. It appears that Dayun has been hit by something, and she cries out in pain. The blonde-haired bully confronts Dayun, telling her to stop overreacting like a little bitch. Dayun inquires about their destination, asking where they are taking her. The blonde-haired bully, visibly angered, berates Dayun, accusing her of acting tough because she has a brother now. The blonde-haired bully threatens Dayun, telling her to follow her if she wants to avoid trouble. Dayun is kicked and falls backward, hurt and shocked by the sudden attack. The 2 bullies stand over her and ask her if they didn't tell her to not act out. Dayun asks what they are talking about. The blonde-haired girl says that this is about the other day where her brother beat up the 2 guys. The bully threatens Dayun, saying that Ijin's school life is also going to be difficult because of what happened. Dayun inquires about the situation, asking, "What do you mean?" The blonde-haired girl then explains that the individuals Ijin had an encounter with yesterday were actually friends of her older brother. She speculates that her brother may have already crossed paths with Ijin by now. Dayun, startled and concerned, raises her voice, demanding to know, "What are you planning to do to my older brother?" The blonde-haired girl, clearly agitated, reacts by slapping Dayun and sternly warns her, "Never scream at me again." Ijin's younger sister bursts into tears and rushes away from the scene, overwhelmed with guilt, believing that her actions may lead to Ijin getting hurt. In Ijin's classroom, a sense of fear and panic washes over the students as 4 imposing figures enter. Among them, 2 are the bullies from the previous incident, their presence heightening the tension in the room. The 4 men make their way towards Ijin, who seems disinterested, his gaze fixed on the window as they approach. The atmosphere in the classroom grows increasingly tense. As the four individuals close in on Ijin, Dayun suddenly bursts into the classroom, catching their attention. She shouts Ijin's name, her disheveled and dirted appearance immediately drawing concern from those present. The situation takes an unexpected turn. Ijin turns to face Dayun and immediately notices the extent of her injuries. His expression shifts from boredom to deep concern as he takes in the sight of his friend's battered state. The punk with orange hair, apparently trying to relate to the situation, remarks, "Yeah, my sister's always nagging me for favors too." His comment attempts to create a sense of understanding or common ground, but the tension in the room remains palpable. The blonde-haired girl, in a moment of vulnerability, adds, "I'd be worried sick if my brother got beaten up too." This statement reveals that the orange-haired punk is her older brother, shedding light on the dynamics within the group of individuals involved. The situation appears to be more complex than initially thought. Ijin, however, remains fixated on his younger sister Dayun and her well-being, seemingly oblivious to the interactions and revelations taking place around him. His primary concern is ensuring her safety and addressing the injuries she has sustained.